The air hung thick with the smell of diesel and cheap coffee. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the rows of buses lined up like metal soldiers ready for battle. It was 5:30 in the morning at the City Transit Authority depot, and the day shift was clocking in. Dave, a fresh-faced rookie still wet behind the ears, scanned the bustling depot, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. This was it, his first day as a city bus driver. He spotted a group of drivers huddled around a flickering vending machine, their laughter echoing off the concrete walls. He took a deep breath and walked towards them, hoping to blend in and maybe, just maybe, find a friendly face in the crowd.
First day, huh?
A gruff voice boomed from behind him. Dave turned to see a mountain of a man with a bushy grey beard and eyes that twinkled with amusement.
Yes, sir, Dave's the name, just starting out.
Bob, the veteran driver, chuckled, extending a calloused hand. Bob, don't you worry, kid, you'll be all right. Just remember, it's a jungle out there on those streets. Dave managed a weak smile, unsure if he should be reassured or terrified. Bob, sensing his unease, clapped him on the shoulder, almost knocking the poor lad off his feet. You'll see things on this job, kid, things you wouldn't believe. Talking parrots, arguing squirrels, you name it. Just another day on the 6:15 to Elm Street. Dave found himself completely absorbed in Bob's tales from the road. Each story was more outlandish than the last, filled with eccentric characters and bizarre encounters. There was the lady who brought her pet ferret, Mr. Nibbles, on board every Tuesday. Apparently, Mr. Nibbles had a particular fondness for chewing on bus tickets. Then there was the opera singer who insisted on serenading the entire bus every Friday afternoon, much to the amusement of some passengers and the utter bewilderment of others. Bob's stories painted a vivid picture of the daily circus that was city bus life. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and undeniably entertaining. Dave found himself both terrified and strangely excited by the prospect of facing it all. The rumble of the engine vibrated through Dave's body as he pulled out of the depot. The early morning air was crisp, and the sky was still cloaked in darkness, with only a hint of dawn on the horizon. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. The road ahead was empty, a blank canvas waiting for the day's stories to unfold. Bob's stories echoed in his ears, a mix of cautionary tales and side-splitting anecdotes. Bob had been driving buses for over 20 years, and his experiences ranged from the mundane to the downright bizarre. His first few stops were uneventful. The bus hissed to a stop, doors opening to let in the first passengers of the day. A handful of sleepy-eyed commuters shuffled on and off, their faces illuminated by the pale glow of their phones. They barely acknowledged Dave, lost in their own worlds. Dave started to relax, thinking maybe, just maybe, this bus driving gig wouldn't be so bad after all. The rhythm of the route was soothing, and he found a certain peace in the routine. But as the sun rose higher in the sky, so did the volume and chaos on his bus. The once quiet vehicle began to fill with the sounds of conversations, laughter, and the occasional argument. He rounded a corner and picked up a group of teenagers, their backpacks overflowing with textbooks and attitude. They brought with them a burst of energy that shattered the morning calm. His peaceful morning commute was about to get a whole lot louder. The bus was now a microcosm of the city, a moving snapshot of life in all its noisy, chaotic glory.
Section 5. The Teenagers. A symphony of noise and bubblegum. The bus ride was never a quiet affair when they were around.
The teenagers descended upon the bus like a flock of pigeons on a freshly baked loaf of bread. Their energy was palpable, filling the air with an electric buzz. They chattered and shrieked, their words a jumbled mess of slang and teenage angst. Conversations overlapped, creating a symphony of youthful exuberance and chaos. Empty, crisp packets and chewing gum wrappers seemed to magically appear in their wake. It was as if they carried a whirlwind of debris wherever they went.
Hey folks, please keep the noise down and put your rubbish in the bins provided. We all need to get to our destinations in peace.
Dave tried to maintain order, reminding them politely, and then not so politely, to keep the noise down and put their rubbish in the bins provided. His patience was wearing thin. His pleas fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the cacophony of teenage energy. The bus was their playground, and they were oblivious to his attempts at control.
All right, that's enough. Keep it down. This is a bus, not a circus.
One particularly bold lad, his baseball cap perched precariously on his head, decided to use the handrail as a makeshift jungle gym. His antics drew both laughter and gasps from his peers. Dave slammed on the brakes, sending a ripple of shrieks and laughter through the bus. The sudden stop was his last-ditch effort to regain control. He took a deep breath, reminding himself that it was only 7:30 a.m. The day had barely begun, and he was already exhausted. This was going to be a long day. The morning sun had just started to rise, casting a golden hue over the city, but for Dave it felt like the day would never end. The teenagers, oblivious to his plight, continued their raucous journey, leaving a trail of noise and bubblegum in their wake. The teenagers finally disembarked at the university, leaving behind a faint aroma of bubblegum and teenage rebellion. Dave sighed in relief, thinking he might actually get a moment of peace. He spoke too soon. At the next stop, an elderly lady boarded the bus, her face half hidden behind an enormous pair of sunglasses. In her arms, she cradled a large ginger cat, its emerald eyes gazing out at the world with disdain.
Morning, love. This is Mr. Whiskers. He loves a good bus ride, doesn't he, my little poppet?
Mr. Whiskers, however, seemed less than thrilled about the prospect. He let out a low growl, his tail twitching ominously. As if a cat on a bus wasn't enough excitement for one morning, an elderly couple shuffled onto the bus at the next stop. They bickered back and forth, their voices a low hum of discontent.
I told you, Agnes, we should have taken the number 23. This one always takes the long way round.
Oh, for heaven's sake, Harold, stop your moaning. It's a bus, not a chariot. And besides, I like the view from this route.
Their bickering continued throughout the ride, a constant soundtrack to the symphony of coughs, sneezes, and rustling newspapers that filled the bus. Dave found himself strangely comforted by their familiar routine. It was strangely endearing, like watching a pair of old shoes, worn but comfortable.
As the morning wore on, I found myself longing for a moment of peace. I daydreamed about driving an empty bus through a deserted city, the only sound the hum of the engine and the gentle squeak of the brakes. But deep down, I knew I wouldn't trade this chaotic, unpredictable job for the world. It was exhausting, yes, but it was also strangely rewarding. I was a part of these people's lives, a small cog in the giant wheel that kept the city moving.
He glanced at the faces around him, each one a story waiting to be told. The tired commuter lost in their book, the young mother struggling to control her rambunctious toddler, the elderly gentleman nodding off in his seat. These were his people, and he was their driver.
The clock ticked past noon as I pulled into the final stop of my route. The sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows on the pavement. I brought the bus to a gentle halt, a wave of relief washing over me. I'd made it through the bustling city streets, the honking horns, and the endless stream of pedestrians. I'd survived my first day as a city bus driver. The sense of accomplishment was overwhelming, knowing I had navigated the urban jungle without a hitch.
One by one, the passengers disembarked, each one offering a parting word or gesture. Some nodded in appreciation, while others gave a quick wave or a simple thank you. The teenagers, their earlier energy depleted, shuffled off the bus, their heads buried in their phones. They had been lively and chatty at the start, but now they were quiet, lost in their digital worlds. The lady with the cat smiled politely, Mr. Whiskers casting a disdainful glance back at the other passengers. She'd been a regular, always with her feline companion and always with a kind word. Agnes and Harold, their bickering momentarily forgotten, thanked Dave for the ride, Harold even managing a grunt of approval. They had been married for over 50 years, their love evident in their playful arguments. Dave chuckled, realizing that beneath their grumpy exteriors beat the hearts of two people who had probably seen it all and lived to tell the tale. It was moments like these that made the job worthwhile, the small connections with the people he transported every day.
Back at the depot, I parked my bus and stepped out into the sunshine. I felt a hand on my shoulder and turned to see Bob, his eyes twinkling with amusement.
So, kid, Bob grinned, how was your first day in the jungle?
Let's just say I've had quieter mornings.
Bob threw back his head and roared with laughter. the sound echoing through the depot. He clapped Dave on the back, almost knocking him off his feet again. "Welcome to life on the buses, kid," Bob chuckled. "You'll never have a dull moment, I can promise you that."
As I walked away from the depot, my shoulders felt a little lighter, my steps a little more confident. I'd faced the chaos of the city bus and emerged, if not unscathed, then certainly not broken.
He realized that Bob was right. Life on the buses was a wild ride, a daily adventure filled with unexpected characters and bizarre encounters. But it was also a reminder that within the ordinary, within the mundane routine of daily commutes, there was always room for the extraordinary. All you had to do was look for it.